Let's talk about depth. Hi, I'm Dave Ruby, and this video is all about hypnotic depth of trance. And this is actually a video that I've wanted to do for a while because one of the really hotly debated topics is how important is depth of trance? Are people going deep enough into trance? So essentially, is it important to get someone as deep into trance and to have some really profound state change to get the most out of hypnosis? Or is it really kind of secondary? Is that really sort of apart from what they're there to do? Is it apart from the actual change they're there to make? And the answer is yes. So let me tell a story that I think kind of sets the stage for this. And this is a session I did a few years back with a friend of mine. We were just kind of practicing and exchanging sessions. And she had some stuff she wanted to work on because, why not? And she is a great hypnotist and also happens to be a really great subject. By that I mean that any phenomena that you suggest, she can pretty much do. She goes deeply into trance very, very easily, and she's a real breeze to work with. So we'd done the induction, we'd done the deepener. She was very deep into trance. You could have stuck a needle through her hand and she wouldn't have felt it. And I mean that very literally. She's just very good at it. So I had suggested an arm levitation, and that's where the arm kind of floats up on its own, and outside of the person's control, it just kind of happens as the unconscious does it for them, so to speak. And the arm was floating there, and the session was going great. And I started to suggest that the changes she was there to make would start to happen only as quickly as that hand started to, de-levitate, to go down. And it started going down, and then I was feeding back suggestions and discussing the areas she wanted to make changes in her life. And that arm was going down, and it was going great. Until it wasn't. Until I hit that part where the part that was actually a problem in her life, well, the unconscious mind had some reservations apparently. And she later told me that that's in fact what her experience was, that as I said the suggestion, she got some unconscious signals that it wasn't ready to change. And I kept trying to give suggestions for that change to happen, and the arm just stayed there frozen and locked in space. Now, why is that important? Because it wasn't a matter of her going deeper to get the change. There were other things the unconscious was telling her that, this wasn't the right thing for her to do because of certain things she had a sense of. And in fact, when I've actually done a lot of research in this, and the evidence I found shows that depth of trance is not really indicative of hypnotizability or of the outcome measure. So if you go really deep or not, that's not necessarily equivalent to being hypnotizable. That's just one factor in how hypnosis is for the individual person. As for actually getting change, again, that doesn't seem to be a correlation between, or there's not really a correlation between depth of trance, being able to go deep, and actually getting the change. You can go into depth, or you can go into trance really deeply, still not get the change. Now, I did find some scholarly sources that kind of back that up. And this first one actually came from a fellow hypnotist, Marion Spurgeon. So Marion, if you're watching this, thank you. The first one was was from a book called Hypnosis for Chronic Pain Management, Therapist's Guide by Mark P. Jensen. And in this book it says that other studies have not found significant associations between measures of hypnotizability and any outcome measures that took place. Moreover, the strength of the associations found between hypnotizability and outcome in chronic pain populations tend to be weak, with hypnotizability never accounting for more than 23% of the variance in outcome, and often accounting for much less. These findings suggest that hypnotizability plays a weak role in treatment outcome in chronic pain population. Note that it doesn't say it plays no correlation, and there is some evidence that going deep into trance can be useful for pain management, perhaps in part because it creates a more dissociation between the body and the pain that's going on, and there may be other factors at place. That said, it doesn't appear to be a very strong correlation, so it can have some impact, but fairly minimum. Now, the other source I have that I have for today is an article from Psychiatry Research Neuroimaging. And the article is called Structural and Functional Correlates of Hypnotic Depth and Suggestibility. And this actually talks about how different people's brains are structured different ways and how that can impact how you experience hypnosis and trance. So it's not necessarily universal. So to cite the article, in conclusion, the findings of this study indicate that individual differences in hypnotic suggestibility in the feeling of being deeply hypnotized correlate with regional variances in specific brain areas associated with various certain phenomena. It also found that there's less interior DMN functional connectivity related to experiences of deeper levels of trance. In other words, different people will experience hypnosis differently. So the so-called deeper trance state, that may be a result of not anything to do with you or the hypnotist, but just rather your brain. It's not anything you're doing, it's just how your brain may be wired. Now, in my experience, for whatever that's worth, different people can often learn to go deeper into trance, but they may just experience it differently. And without doing too much conversation on this, there are different schools of thought as far as, is hypnosis is it a state-based thing, or is it more processed? In other words, does it rely on you going to this altered state, or is that just a byproduct and it's more about your brain processing things like how it does when you go into deep concentration for things like driving, reading, meditating, things of that nature? So that may be a conversation for another video, but there's some evidence that the brain's structured in certain ways so that how you experience trance may be different than other people do. Also, as far as importance of depth of trance, I did want to talk about a few things. There actually was recently a randomized controlled trial on core transformation, which is a process Connie Ray Andreas came up with. And there's also a lot of research behind the RTM protocol from Dr. Frank Bork and Dr. Richard Gray. I bring those up because there's a lot of evidence showing those particular modalities work, and neither of them really deal with depth of trance. And if you want, in the description, I'll leave some links to the research. But there are two modalities that are very well researched at this point, and they don't appear to use any real depth of trance, but they work hypnotically in some regards, and they tend to work really, really well. So another example, well, actually, why would you use depth? If it's not important, why would you use depth of trance? Why would you use deepeners? Perhaps ironically, James Tripp had a story, James Tripp of Hypnosis Without Trance fame. He doesn't tend to use trance like in a deep sort of trance sort of way, but he talked about a patient or a client rather, who came in, and James didn't want to do his normal hypnotic phenomena like hand sticks or things of that nature. So he did this phenomena-free session, and basically made a great change for the person in one session. And James, as he tells it, at least as I recall it, he was very proud of the work he did, and he was ready to wrap up the session, and the man looked really disappointed. And James asked the man, "Well, what? You seem like you're kind of down. What's going on?" And the man basically asked for, basically said that, "Well, I was hoping to be able to have my hand stuck to the wall or something, And James did that to kind of give him the experience. Now, what's the importance of that? The importance is that the actual experience of going deep into trance or experiencing phenomena can be useful for a few things. One, you get the experience. If you're seeing a hypnotist or if you're doing hypnosis, there's something to that experience of doing something that is kind of out of the ordinary. Now, whether it's actually important or not for the outcome, it can build expectancy. It does show you something that your unconscious mind can do that that maybe you weren't aware of before. Something that's actually exciting. In my old story, or my story from the beginning of this video, when my friend and practice partner, her hand was kind of stuck there, Why did I do that? It gave me some kind of analog gauge for progress. And again, I didn't want the arm to go down until, you know, her unconscious mind had done the work. You can also have people stay in trance until their unconscious mind figures out or installs something that lets you know the change happened. It can also be useful for things like pain management to kind of dissociate from the pain, or for things like surgical anesthesia, or even just deeply relaxing. Trance can be a very pleasant, very enjoyable and very relaxing state. So that can be useful in its own right. Now, going back to my friend whose hand was stuck there, how did I resolve that? Because it wasn't about going deeper. So what I found was that the hand wasn't moving, which sucked. But what I did was I gave the suggestion something along the lines of that the unconscious could find some way to resolve that and address that issue in a way that was appropriate for the client. And without using any more deepeners or trying to trick the unconscious or do anything weird like that, that's what did it. Giving the unconscious mind the ability to let that hand drop only as it found a way to take the suggestions in a way that were harmonious to her life. And then the hand dropped and she went even deeper into a state and came out and reported that excuse me, that suggestion for the unconscious to resolve in a way that was right for the person is what made the difference. It wasn't that she wasn't deep enough, it was that she wasn't in the right mindset to just take that suggestion on board. She had to figure out a way to make that appropriate for her life. So that's my take on hypnotic depth and its importance. I think it can be very useful. When I do hypnosis with clients or for practice partners, and when I experience it myself, I find depth is an enjoyable part of the process. It's not terribly important from my perspective for getting their outcome. Milton Erickson had a saying something along the lines of that clients will go as deep as they need to make the change they're there to make. So there's something to trusting that your unconscious mind will do what's right for you. Of course, there's also nothing wrong with seeing what the person is capable of doing and letting them have the experience. So that's my thought on this. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, leave them in the comments below. And if you have any thoughts or suggestions for other videos, then please leave those in the comments or just message me directly. So thanks for your time. Have a great day.